Welcome to AgentFest. I'm Dale Hall, the CMO at SnapLogic. For the last year, we've all lived through the AI hype phase. AI hype, I'm sure you've heard it a dozen times. Anyway, we've all seen demos. We've played with the models, we've felt the excitement to some extent, but today, some of that novelty is wearing off, and real work is beginning. What do we mean by that? Well, we've reached a tipping point. Every leader I talk to is moving past the question of what can AI do and asking a much harder one. How do I drive meaningful outcomes in my enterprise with AI? The reality is that an AI model without integration is like a high-performance engine without a drivetrain. Incredible power, but it's not fully connected to the wheels. So a lot of people are revving in place, but it isn't moving your business forward. That's a big problem. So today isn't about experiments. It's about activating AI and agents across the enterprise, out of the design lab and onto your production line. Now today we've gathered architects and leaders who are actually building the agentic enterprise. We're going to show you, not just tell you, show you, how to orchestrate intelligence across your entire stack. That's where we come in. We believe SnapLogic is that indispensable infrastructure for the future of the enterprise. We're going to show you that today. We're purpose-built to move AI from experimental pilots to industrial scale business impact, connecting models and data to real-world outcomes. So, to start us off, I'm thrilled to introduce a man who spends his days solving these last-mile problems of AI at scale. So, please welcome SnapLogic's Chief Technology Officer, Jeremiah Stone. Jeremiah, the stage is yours.
Hello everyone, and welcome to AgentFest. My name is Jeremiah Stone, and I am the Chief Technology Officer here at SnapLogic. Over the last year, AI has crossed a critical threshold from assisting work to executing it. And as that shift happens, the focus is moving beyond building agents to running agents in real enterprise workflows. Agents are opening and resolving tickets. Agents are retrieving data from systems. Agents are coordinating complex workflows across applications. As AI begins to take on real work, those agents are not coming from one place. They're being built everywhere. They're being built across SaaS platforms, AI providers, and custom frameworks. They're inside Salesforce, inside ServiceNow, and built on platforms like AWS and Google and Azure. Also on vendor-neutral platforms like SnapLogic, and it seems like every Y Combinator company on the planet. Even inside enterprise applications themselves, agents are emerging everywhere, and no single platform will own them. And that fundamentally changes how work gets done in the enterprise. For the past several decades, enterprise software has primarily supported human tasks and decision-making. Now AI is beginning to participate directly in operational work. As that happens, a new kind of enterprise architecture is emerging, one where AI agents operate across systems, workflows, and data sources. One where AI is embedded directly into how the business runs. I believe that every company will eventually become an agentic company. Not because it sounds exciting, not because the tech is cool, though it is, but because the economics and competitive advantage of automation and decision acceleration will make it inevitable. Now, the interesting thing is this shift is already underway. Across the enterprise software ecosystem, AI assistants and copilots have become standard. If you look at Workday, Salesforce, Microsoft, ServiceNow, and many others, AI is now embedded directly in the interface of enterprise applications. But copilots are only the first phase. And to be honest, it's not clear that these isolated capabilities will deliver systemic impact that matters. The next phase is operational AI, agents that plan and execute multi-step tasks across systems, agents that interact with enterprise workflows, agents that become participants in the processes that run the business, in some cases, taking over tasks or task families completely. And that's where things start to get interesting. Because once agents begin interacting with real systems and real workflows, something much bigger becomes possible. AI stops being an individual productivity tool and starts becoming a business competitive advantage. Now, despite all of the excitement around AI, the reality inside enterprises is actually quite sobering. Industry research shows that roughly 95% of AI initiatives fail to deliver measurable, sustained P&L value. Why? Because most AI investments have been focused on individual productivity, giving every employee a co-pilot. That helps individuals, but it doesn't deliver sustained P&L impact. What we've learned from over 40 years of enterprise software is that repeatable, high-quality processes are what delivers sustained business improvement and long-term return on invested capital. The real challenge is operationalizing AI inside of your enterprise environments, running real workflows, connecting to real systems, operating with real governance, security, and control. That's where the difficulty begins. AI models are extraordinary. They can generate, analyze, summarize, and plan. But enterprise execution is a different problem. Enterprises run on complex workflows that span hundreds of systems. They require governed access to enterprise data. They require reliable orchestration across applications and services. They require auditability, compliance, and control. And they require the ability to handle errors, escalation paths, and access to human oversight. AI models are not designed to handle that environment on their own, and they're not going to get there anytime soon. Intelligence is not execution. That means that before enterprises can even start building agents, there's a more fundamental question that needs to be answered. Which workflows should involve AI and agents? Where does AI actually create measurable business value? Which processes are structured enough to automate and can provide impact? Which outcomes matter enough to justify all of the work, transformation, and change? The most successful AI initiatives are not open-ended experiments. They are targeted workflows with clear business outcomes. Based on our experience, let me show you what to look for. We've spent the last several years working with customers across financial services, entertainment, manufacturing, healthcare, and professional services. A clear pattern has emerged. The processes where AI agents deliver the greatest return share three characteristics. First, they're high volume. Staff are executing the same rough steps, sometimes hundreds or more times a day, across disconnected systems. The steps themselves aren't necessarily complex. It's the volume that kills you. Second, they're data lookup intensive. You're not just querying one database. You're pulling from 5, 10, 15 different systems, ERP, CRM, document management, regulatory databases, and cross-referencing structured data with unstructured documents. This is where integration becomes essential. An agent that can only see one system isn't an agent. It's a chatbot. Third, they require decision support with contextual reasoning. Approvals, escalations, risk assessments. Until now, these required a person because you needed to synthesize context across both structured data and unstructured documents. AI models are now capable of handling this analysis, but only if they're carefully harnessed and have access to the right data. Loan underwriting, client onboarding, enterprise search, fraud investigation, compliance review, sales intelligence, proposal creation, all great examples. If you see those three characteristics, high volume, data lookup intensive, and decision support requiring contextual reasoning, you're looking at a high-value agentic AI candidate. Today, you'll see exactly these kinds of processes in action. That brings us to the architectural insight behind what is necessary to deliver the agentic enterprise. If we look at the emergent AI stack required for enterprise AI, it has several layers. At the top are AI agents, built across SaaS platforms, custom frameworks, and tools like our Agent Creator. Below them sit the AI models. But between the agents and enterprise systems, two critical layers must exist. First, the orchestration layer. This is a new layer. responsible for governance, security, and observability across these AI workflows. But orchestration without integration is empty. You cannot orchestrate what you can't connect to. The integration layer, connecting to enterprise data, applications, APIs, and thousands of other systems, is what makes orchestration real and high impact. Without these layers, agents remain demonstrations. With them, they become infrastructure. Fortunately, integration platforms were built for exactly this purpose: connecting systems, moving data, orchestrating workflows, enforcing governance. AI agents are simply the newest participants in these kinds of workflows, which is why integration becomes the foundation of the agentic enterprise. This is exactly the problem SnapLogic was built to solve. SnapLogic is the agentic integration platform that orchestrates AI-powered workflows across enterprise applications, data, and systems. The platform enables organizations to connect agents with enterprise systems, to coordinate workflows across applications, data, and people, and to govern AI execution across complex enterprise environments. Now, as we said earlier, no single vendor will own all the agents. How could they? Instead, enterprises will operate in many different environments where many different agents interact with enterprise systems and workflows. What organizations need, therefore, is a governed orchestration layer that enables those agents to operate safely and reliably, regardless of where they were built. And that's exactly the role that SnapLogic plays. One unified platform connecting agents, orchestrating workflows, and earning trust. To support this architecture, we continue to invest, run fast, and expand the platform. From the start, SnapLogic has been model independent, providing deep, consistent support for OpenAI, Anthropic, Google Gemini, and all of the different models available on Amazon Bedrock, as well as models off of Hugging Face and other places. You can choose the right model for the job or switch providers entirely without rewriting the entire system around your agents. Recent innovations include enhancements to Agent Creator that simplify building and deploying agent workflows, an enterprise-grade MCP server with OAuth support, and new capabilities we are announcing today include AI Gateway, which governs how agents interact with your enterprise systems, Trusted Agent Identity, which enhances security via token propagation, and new SnapGPT capabilities that assist developers in building and managing AI workflows. It's really an exciting time. Across our customers today, we are already seeing AI-powered workflows running in production and delivering real impact. Financial institutions are automating underwriting processes, KYC, anti-money laundering. You'll hear from one of them today. Operations teams are coordinating cross-system investigations. Customer support teams are using AI agents to interact with enterprise systems and knowledge and increase ticket deflection and provide better support at a lower cost. These are not theoretical capabilities. They are real workflows running today. And that brings us to the broader journey enterprises are beginning to take. Let's face it, most organizations today are still very early in the enterprise AI lifecycle. Some are experimenting with AI. Others are building their very first agents. But the real transformation begins when AI becomes embedded in enterprise workflows, when agents connect to real systems, when workflows span applications and data, and when AI begins to deliver measurable business outcomes. That transition from experimentation to enterprise execution is happening now. Today, you will see exactly how this works in practice. You'll hear from companies all running AI workflows in production. You'll see the architecture behind enterprise AI orchestration, and you'll see demonstrations of how agents interact with enterprise systems safely and reliably. It's an extremely exciting time. Let's go.
Thank you, Jeremiah. This guy's always good at what he does. Pretty exciting though, right? I think it's clear from what Jeremiah shared that the engine of agentic AI is more powerful than anything we've seen before. But as we've mentioned, and as you're probably hearing from other people, An engine only matters if the drivetrain is connected and the wheels are turning, everything's going in the right direction. So the question now is, what does it look like when that engine hits the open road? How do you take these high performance models and actually drive measurable growth? Well, our next speaker is doing exactly that. I'm pleased to welcome David Holton, who's the Chief Transformation Officer at Cambridge and Counties Bank. David isn't just experimenting in a basement or a garage, he's modernizing an entire architectural chassis to support AI-driven automation across lending and customer service. He's here to show us how they are scaling into their next phase of growth by making AI truly operational, not just aspirational. David, floor's yours.
Thanks, Dale, for the warm introduction. I'm delighted to be here to talk about the exciting work we're doing in the agentic AI space. Thanks to SnapLogic for inviting me here. I do hope you'll find it both interesting and also useful with some learnings along the way that you'll be able to take forward in your own business. I'm David Holton. I'm the CTO at a bank called Cambridge and Counties Bank. We've called this session Building the Engine for Growth, because that's exactly what this is all about here. We've approached the AI opportunity through the lens of how do we get more from the resources we already have, rather than looking just through a single focus of cost reduction. So this is really about a material growth in assets for us. Most of the things I read about in the AI space are about the cost reduction. We're looking at it through a different lens. So I hope this is interesting for you. Let's start with a little bit about Cambridge and Counties Bank. So I'll begin with a little bit of context so you understand who we are. It'll also help to bring to life a little bit more about what we are doing and why. Cambridge Counties Bank is a specialist lender focused on supporting the UK's SME businesses, operating primarily in the real estate and asset finance sectors. By specialist bank, what I really mean there is we support customers that are usually left aside by the traditional high street banks. So they've got a slightly more sophisticated need that requires a little bit more in-depth knowledge on the customer. And that's where we come in with there. Other things I think that are relevant to our challenge here is in UK financial services, it's a heavily regulated industry, and therefore the risk considerations for us are extremely important, and that'll become really valid when I go through what it is we're building alongside Snap. Our ability to audit and demonstrate what we've done and why is absolutely essential as we design and build out that any technology solution really, but especially in this space. And then finally, we are a business that really gets to know its customers and understand their businesses. We take time to understand what the ask is. We take a view on credit quality and risk in order to provide customers with the support they need. And to do this, we have a group of highly skilled, highly experienced colleagues who manually underwrite each and every loan decision. And again, that will become increasingly more important as I run through the session today. The human element of these interactions is incredibly important to us and is often called out as valuable by our customers as well. Okay, so if you think conceptually, we are a bank that is highly personable and highly manual in that regard. So then think about that in the context of then looking to automate through agentic AI and why some of the things that we're considering are equally as important. So if I move on here, what is it that we're going to be looking at today? So what I want to cover is the business case that we've crafted. I'll talk a little bit about the architecture that moved from pilot into production, how we're looking to do that. I'll consider how we view governance and what's required to ensure that what we're doing is both safe and compliant. Again, a critical thing for UKFS. Then I'll finish with some thoughts on the impact we expect this to have and also what we'll be measuring. Now, along the way, I'll try and call out some of the challenges we've had, some of the learnings, so you don't repeat some of the mistakes that we might have made as we've gone on this quite exciting journey with SnapLogic. So the reality versus the ambition in financial services and asset finance in particular for us. So what is it we're looking at here? Looking at the business case to start, we want to grow our asset finance business from 100 million a year to 300 million a year from this single investment in agentic AI. Asset finance is around about 10% of the bank's balance sheet, but it's a key strategic growth ambition for us. We were looking at a more traditional platform play to fuel that growth, but my view was that's only really going to bring us into parity with our peers, whereas the emerging capabilities of AI could give us an opportunity to truly leapfrog the peers in the industry. And I think catch up was one thing, but actually going over and above was what we were really interested in doing. And again, that's why we were speaking to Snap about the capabilities that this technology might be able to bring us over and above what we were just seeing elsewhere in the market. We were already working with SnapLogic with their integration platform, so we'd reached out to discuss the AI potential and was quite excited by the opportunity that that would bring. I'll come back to exactly why Snap versus the myriad of other providers in this space when I discuss the architecture later. So I really think that'll bring to life why we chose Snap as a partner rather than others in that. The asset finance market is different to that of the real estate market. It's much more reliant on pace and speed of response. Our brokers love dealing with us, our customers love dealing with us, but they find us slow. We only get a portion of the business that they would give us if our service was faster. And our teams, as you can see there, our teams have all that capacity with what we're doing today. It's a very manual touch process. It's got multiple touch points and handoffs. And to grow at the rate of our ambition, we really need a 3x improvement here in how we operate. And we're looking to get to that point as quickly as we can. So we're not known for pace, and this is all about pace. We're not known for being hugely automated. This was all about how do we bring automation into what has previously been a very manual world. So let's take a look at delving deeper into the problem statement. So our brokers usually want a same day response. However, our sales teams can't package the applications quick enough. Our underwriters can't review them quickly enough. And the manual process that we've got introduces data errors that require quite a bit of rework, which gives us an inconsistent quality and a slow response time. The end-to-end process itself can sometimes take us up to a week to respond. I've seen cases personally where by the time we've gone back to the broker with an approval, the deal has already been approved, assessed, and drawn down elsewhere. So it's not only frustrating for our brokers, but it's also cost us a whole week's worth of work. And that's clearly not where we wanted to be there. If I break down the steps in a little bit more detail then, demonstrate why this takes us so long, keep in mind how manual this is and where you think AI might be able to play a part, because I think you'll be able to see this as we go through this. So at the start of the process, we've got a lot of data extraction and transformation to take from a broker submission and convert that into our current application template. We don't always have all the information at hand, so there's often a little bit of back and forth with the broker or with the customer to get this. And we perform a number of other searches on the business and go back and forth again with the submitter to gain additional information that we need. Our credit team then perform a number of searches themselves, both out in the market and again with the across the multiple platforms and also with the submitter there to get additional information to aid the credit decision. So what you'll notice here is a lot of data extraction, a lot of data manipulation, checking of multiple systems and completion of templates all across just to get the right documentation and analysis to complete one asset finance deal. And it's that structure that made me believe when we look at the problem statement here that this was a prime case for agentic AI transformation, and which is why we're making the investments we are in building this out. So what have we done then? Setting off on the AI journey, we agreed a number of core principles that were important both to me but also the bank, that were going to guide the work that SnapLogic are supporting. Firstly, there's a real need to be a compelling area with a real challenge and quantifiable with an opportunity to improve. I'm sure you'll agree that we found that with there. I wouldn't look at something that was side of desk and not big enough really to incorporate that big return. It was really important that we found something that was going to be high impact. It was also important to keep the business at the forefront of this and to co-create with colleagues in there. Having business users help along the way has been invaluable. We've discovered more about how our process works by working directly with users in this way than we would have done if we tried to do that in isolation. And there was a lot of opportunity or a lot of requests to try and do this in a darkened room on our own and then bring the solution into the bank. I think the right thing has been to work very closely with teams on the ground to get their input, also to get their buy-in as we've gone along. I mentioned earlier on how important the governance and oversight is in UKFS. Everything we design needs to be easily checked, needs to be easily verified. I'm also going to go a little bit further on this point and say that a key part of the proposition is the knowledge and experience that our colleagues have got. And I want to enhance the use of this, not to replace it. And that's a key tenet of our AI strategy here. The technology must replace the non-value add but important steps in the process, but keep the human in the loop for the critical value add elements. I think it's that balance that I believe will give us the right mix and it'll ensure we deliver the economic benefits, but not at the cost of either the customer or the colleague experience. Both of those things are really important, I think, when you're looking at where AI can play in your business. I'll come on to the architecture in a bit more detail, but it's important to understand how to construct the agents. So keeping their tasks as small as possible and as limited in scope as possible helps to ensure that the agent does what you need it to and no more. I think it's far better to have a dozen agents doing a dozen specific tasks rather than one agent trying to do everything. The opportunity forever in that situation is far greater. So we've constructed this in a much more modular way. And then finally, it's essential to have really quantifiable and meaningful outcomes that you can measure. So we've baked our benefits directly into our business case and this year's financial plan, which fully aligns the work we're doing on the transformation side with business performance. And one of the key things we've got SnapLogic supporting us with is the ability to capture and track back some of the actions we've taken and the benefits that we would like to see. So the architecture here is incredibly important, and SnapLogic is the single control plane governing what runs, when it runs, and in what sequence. And think about this as every request to the agent flows through this centralized orchestration agent, which ensures policy enforcement, escalation logic are applied consistently across the entire process. So we've got the one agent effectively through the Snap platform governing what everybody else does there, back to the point of having a dozen agents doing a dozen different things. I think that orchestration piece is really critical in there. The monitoring of agent behavior is in a single pane of glass. That means we can govern, debug, and visualize that agent behavior. Through Snap, you'll see some of the things like Companies House, Credit Safe, Experian. A lot of the connections that we already have elsewhere, Snap already had pre-built connectivity to the enterprise data sources. So connecting to those didn't need any customized connection development. That's undoubtedly saved us time and saved us money as we've gone through this as well, which is good. You'll see to the right hand side of the screen a very small box with HITL in there. Typical techies have put that in the smallest font possible. Actually, as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the most important pieces here. This is our human in the loop bit. And again, what I talked about earlier on, it's absolutely essential to us that we maintain the human ability to do what we do, and we've got the agents effectively looking at that lower value work. And I think that's going to set us up really well when we launch this to market, because from a customer point of view, they will see the same human interactions they've seen previously, but we will get the benefit internally and then pass that benefit on to the customer through greater pace and greater capabilities. This isn't about replacing our humans with a lot of agents. So, for example, on the human in the loop piece, if an orchestration agent identifies a discrepancy or has a low degree of confidence in something that it's done, escalation of a human review is pretty much automatic and auditable. And again, that ability to audit is really important for us. Another key part of the architecture here is that each sub-agent, so the intake, the CGM, the AML agents, as you see on the screen, which are very specific to our asset finance business, is a discrete SnapLogic pipeline. So that means individual agents can be updated, they can be tested, they can be replaced without having to rebuild the broader system. So this modular approach to the architecture is really smart and really helpful here. And that lays the foundation to scale to other areas of the bank. Because the great thing about this, and again, another reason why I chose SnapLogic to build this rather than myriad other tech firms who were currently pitching this, is the repeatability we've got across the rest of the bank. I can already see, and my peers can already see, a lot of other use cases once we prove this out with asset finance. I want to talk to you a little bit about the governance and compliance, because again, anyone else on this call who's from UKFS will be, as I am, really interested in the compliance and the governance element of this, and it's really important. So the autonomy of the agents are controlled by a deterministic rule set, with the orchestration agent, as I've said, ensuring that the agents act in the way that is intended. The Snap platform allows us to program this in a single pane and audit this whenever we need, which is absolutely essential. And the agents deliver then a confidence score when playing back their work. The output to that is in a very structured way, which is helpful. And that allows us to review consistently and then apply that human in the loop review whenever needed. Everything an agent does is recorded and is available to audit, as is the human interaction. Again, that's really important. You don't have this in a normal process that you've got. We can audit what the humans do, the prompts, the decisions that are made, etc. All of that is neatly recorded. And I'm hoping that once we get the MI through this, we'll be able to transition from a retrospective view, which is what I've got today with the business, into pretty much real-time reporting, which in itself will be quite transformational for the bank. And then finally, we've kept the tasks small and contained so that the prompts and the complex tasks are split into smaller LLM calls. That's designed to make it easier for us to test the outcomes, make sure the agents are doing what they're doing, and just keeps the scope of each agent request as narrow as possible, which helps with the confidence scores as well. In terms of the operational impact we're looking to have here, we're targeting a 3x capability uplift, which gives us the ability to grow the business from 100 million, 300 million, as it said earlier on. That's without the need for any additional people. So historically, up to this point, most of the bank's growth has been, because we're very manual and we're very human focused, has been the bank grows, we add more people, the bank grows, we add more people, etc. I'm looking to break that direct relationship between income growth and cost growth, but not by replacing humans in that interaction, by effectively automating the non-value add tasks. And I think the agentic AI capability really gives us the opportunity to do that. So the people we do have should end up with far better roles and more time available for that direct broker and direct customer contact and less time on admin. So this is about automating the work, not the people in that. And we should be able to rely on then the additional capacity created and significantly reduce those response time to brokers and customers. So we're going for a mix of business growth with better high value roles for colleagues, which I think is a really compelling pitch to our colleagues as well as it is to our customers and our brokers. So how would I talk about the top takeaways there? I think we focused our use case on an area of clear pain to us and operational inefficiency. That's helped to craft a measurable and clear strategic objective, as I think you'll probably agree. Haven't heard the story there. There's a lot of use cases out there where I think it often feels like technology looking for a problem to solve, or you need a real shift in behavior to see the opportunity. I'd suggest looking at a point of high operational friction where the benefit of reducing that is really clear. So start with a problem and see where the technology can get, much the same as in other worlds, but I think the agentic AI space especially. I was very clear in this phase that I wanted to automate work, not decisions, as we've spoken about previously. I do see a role for AI to play in the decision making at some point, but only once we've run it for a while, once we've seen the benefits come through, once we are comfortable with the outputs that we're getting. The good thing about the way we're building this with Snap and the capability of the technology is I might get 3x on day one, but by building it in this way, you could transition that to 5 to 10x in the future if you allow the technology to do more without necessarily needing to do a whole host of extra development. So that future capability piece is quite exciting in there. And then finally, one of the benefits we found doing this on the Snap platform was the not having a need to modernize everything else around it. So the beauty of what we've been able to do with Snap is because of the connectivity, because of the integration platform that we've got here, we didn't need to then go and modernize everything else before we started. We could keep what we already have. We could have the onboarding system we wanted. We could have the back end system we wanted. And you didn't have to go and change all of that as you would have done with them with a different provider. It's allowed us to develop and evolve that existing governance that we had, and build that through and take what we were good at and excel with that rather than have to replace everything pretty much from scratch. So I hope that's been a useful summary and a brief deep dive into the work we're doing. We are really excited about this landing. It should be out in the public domain within the next month to 6 weeks. And I'm really excited about the capability that we've got here. So thank you for listening. I hope it's been interesting for you. I hope you've learned something from our experiences. And I'll pass back to Dale. Thank you very much.
David, thank you. I've spent actually quite a bit of time with David recently. Very inspirational. So glad to have him as a customer. And it's incredibly valuable to see how that engine is performing on the open road in a real business and how it's driving real growth at Cambridge and Counties Bank. But as David mentioned, you can't just drop a high-performance engine into an old frame and expect it to work. You need to think holistically and be a little bit more sophisticated with your architecture. A system that translates all that raw power into precise, controlled movement across lending, operations, and data. That's the important part. So let's open the hood, or the bonnet, as we call it in the UK. We're going to look at the actual gears and the linkages that make agentic integration possible. So right now, I'm pleased to welcome some of our own engineers, our own mechanics. Please welcome Dominic Wellington and Roger Stramkowski from SnapLogic. They're going to walk us through the technical architecture that connects agents, apps, and data, showing you exactly how to build the best drivetrain that can handle the speed of AI. So Dominic, Roger, show us how it's built.
So hi, I'm Dominic Wellington, Director of Product Marketing for Data and AI at SnapLogic, and we'll be talking about agentic architectures. So going back to what you heard from Jeremiah and from David, companies everywhere are building agents. They're experimenting all over the place. Our friends at AWS and IDC ran a survey end of last year of 900 organizations. 23% are planning to get full deployment in 2026 and 65% in 2027. And this is not just, a tool that they use that's enabled AI capabilities. They're mixing those built-in capabilities with custom-built agents to complete tasks. They're deploying multi-agent solutions, but they're saying that multi-agent interoperability remains a concern for them. So this is the context that we're talking about. But why are so many enterprises interested in investing in AI agents? So fundamentally, there are three goals that they're after. So first of all is speed. They're trying to accelerate the time to value. They're trying to get tools into their users' hands, into their customers' hands, so that they can deliver value quickly to those people that is concrete, that is actionable. Secondly, they're after agility. They're trying to drive the human cost of integration to zero, because most business processes don't run in just one tool. As we were just saying, you can't rely on just one vendor. you have to span multiple different tools. There are probably some homegrown capabilities as well that are very, very highly customized to your environment. And so when you need to make a change across all of those systems, you need to be very agile in how you do that so that you can, in turn, be agile in responding to changes and taking advantage of opportunities that are out there. And that leads into the final point, the competitive advantage. Because if you can deliver fast, if you can be agile in responding to changes in the environment, and you can do all of that faster than your competitors can, then you gain competitive advantage. Vice versa, if your technological systems are preventing you from moving as quickly as you would like to in evolving your business, then you might be losing ground to other players in that business. So that's why people are looking to invest in these technologies so that they can get these benefits. And so an example of that process would be our customer Bison Transport, who you'll be hearing more from in the panel later. So they'd already decided 2026 was going to be their year of AI focus, but they realized that to achieve the goals that they had with AI, they were going to need a much better way of accessing their data and managing it and generally controlling and governing that whole process. So with SnapLogic, we were able to get them to a place where they were deploying their data pipeline 6 times faster than they were previously. And a big part of that was also unified data access so that there was one place to look for the data instead of having to go across 4 or 5 different systems. And the result of this was that their new transportation management system launched on schedule with no downtime. And those of you who've been around IT for any amount of time know that those are two things which unfortunately very rarely go together. And what that means, if we go back to what those business goals are, we want to move fast, we want to be very rapid in deploying these tools, and a key part of that is how quickly can we connect up to all of your core systems, apps, and data so that the agent can be fully in touch, in context with what's going on in your business. We want that agility to be able to respond to changes and opportunities. And so you have to be able to orchestrate the new AI capabilities coming from all of the other vendors in your environment, as well as what is being developed custom elsewhere in your organization. You want to be able to connect all of that. And finally, the competitive advantage so that you can trust the results of what's coming out. So you know that it's governed, it's controlled, it's secure, it's compliant. All of that is what enables you to turn it on in business critical use cases and environments. So that's where you get true human digital collaboration. The humans enabled and empowered by digital labor, but both of them looking at that same full real-time context of wherever it is located in your environment, whether it is in the cloud as a SaaS tool, whether it's in your private cloud, whether it's in an on-premises environment, a data center, from the cloud right to the network edge, because these are the systems that the humans are using to run the business, and now the AIs will also need that same access, so you need that universal accessibility. After all, agents cannot act without that context, so they need that secure access to the systems, the apps, and the data where they can find that context, where they can extrapolate that context from. With over 1,000 snaps already available, SnapLogic already gives you that connectivity, as well as through the API side of things as well. And then for the newer systems and AI features of existing systems that get added, you also have access to the Model Context Protocol, which is emerging as the standard for agentic connectivity. So here's what that looks like. On the left-hand side of the screen, you have your agent, and that runs what's called an MCP client, which gives it access to all of these tools and capabilities. But we don't just connect up the MCP client to the MCP server. SnapLogic also gives you an AI gateway, which sits between the two and ensures the authentication and authorization. Who are you? What data do you have access to? Is that what you should have access to? So it gives you that control. Then the MCP server hosts the tools and the resources which we want to give to the agent, the access that we want to give to the agent, but still with that control, with the policies that we decide to apply to it, with a trusted identity, including propagating that identity all the way from the end user that the agent is acting on behalf of, and the human in the loop, who is potentially also intervening in the process. And then that MCP server, through the snaps, through the APIs of the core SnapLogic platform, it then has access to all of your systems, whether they're in the cloud or whether they're inside your corporate firewall. The promise of SnapLogic has always been that we can run the pipelines inside the firewall. Your data never leaves your firewall. That security remains also in this new world. So the advantages of AI do not require you to compromise on your other controls. So to recap, the specific capabilities that we want to call out here, the AI gateway there, which adds these authentication and authorization policies as part of the model context protocol, and taking advantage of existing platform capabilities, but updated and extended to this new world, such as the traffic management, the throttling that helps you limit the number of connections, avoid a misbehaving agent potentially overwhelming a target system. That was undesirable in the previous world of APIs, and it remains very undesirable in the new world of AI agents. We are also continuing to extend these capabilities, looking at the token policies. Some of these capabilities can be expensive in terms of the tokens, and there can be differences in how you consume those tokens, and so we can help you optimize those costs. So stand by for more of these features coming soon. And secondly, the trusted agent identity. I mentioned before that agents act on behalf of a human user. We can ensure that the access that human user has is propagated to the agent so that it has the same access as the person that they're working for, but no more access than that. In certain models, there was the approach that the agents would act with a sort of system privilege that had access to everything, and then you try to reconcile that afterwards. That never quite works. And so securely propagating the authentication token from the end user to the agent all the way to the core business systems, make sure that you have that end-to-end control, as well as the after-the-fact tracking of which human user the agents were working for. And so that's why SnapLogic Agent Creator with the Model Context Protocol can truly be the orchestration layer for enterprise AI. You can build agents directly in SnapLogic without needing any other tools. You can access data and tools in other systems via MCP directly from SnapLogic pipelines. You can offer connectivity to core business systems via SnapLogic's 1,000+ snaps for agents developed anywhere else, third-party agents. And you have full observability and governance throughout that process. Let's start to get a bit more detailed about how that actually works. Model Context Protocol is now an open source protocol which has become adopted as the way that agents connect to the world. The idea is that AI models and agents can run an MCP client. That MCP client then connects to MCP servers, which can expose to them tools, resources, and prompts in a way that the MCP client and through it, the AI agent at the other end can consume. So what this looks like in a SnapLogic world is you have your AI agent, your Claude, your ChatGPT, whatever it might be. It has its MCP client, and it can connect up to a SnapLogic pipeline, which can act as an MCP server and instantly connect up to all of your business systems. We put some icons here on the screen. It could be SAP, Salesforce, Oracle, it could be anything. The point is you have those 1,000+ snaps that give you that connectivity, and that is now instantly accessible also to a new generation of AI agents. And it also works in the other direction. A SnapLogic pipeline can itself call out to any MCP server elsewhere as more and more tools and platforms add these capabilities, and as people build their own MCP servers for their own purposes. One third-party marketplace hosts nearly 19,000 public MCP servers. So all of these are also instantly accessible to the SnapLogic pipelines. So you have full visibility and connectivity end to end. So I'm joined today by my colleague Roger Srankowski, who's going to show us a demo of how this actually works in the SnapLogic UI. Take it away, Roger.
Thank you, Dominic. As Dominic mentioned, my name is Roger Strzemkowski. I'm a senior solutions engineer here at SnapLogic. And what I'm going to show you today is MCP server in SnapLogic, sort of full build for pipelines. We're going to start with two sort of high level things. The first is that I want to just talk to all of our existing customers that are with us today. What you're looking at right now is actually our refreshed UI. So you're going to see things that are a little bit different, and I'm not going to go through everything. Just a heads up, the things that we will talk about today are going to be these two new build options, pipeline and MCP server. With that said, let me jump in over to my pre-existing MCP server that's part of our demo today. And before we dig into this, I just want to take one moment to set up the story of the data that we're working with and sort of the role we're going to take today. So we're going to imagine ourselves in a sales or customer success management role, and we are looking for a way to use natural language to get access to our enterprise data and then get some help with analysis, right? Our goal in these roles is to obtain, keep, and grow customers. And so we're just looking away for that AI human interaction that Dominic was talking about to try and become better at what we do and more equipped to go have those human-to-human conversations. So let's start by looking at this pipeline. This is the 4-snap pattern that you would have for any MCP server that you would like to build in SnapLogic. And you're not going to really touch or have to modify anything here except for this first one. And this is where, if I sort of expand this out so you can see it, this is where we would list all the tools that we want to have access to. So in today's demo, we just have two tools, one that will list our Salesforce opportunities and another one that will go and fetch details about those opportunities if needed. And it's really the agent that will decide. And so if I just close this, or sorry, before I close this, let me say, when you hit this plus sign in this bar, this is where we would get the ability to just choose a drop-down box to pick another tool. So it's really that easy to expand what your MCP server does. Is once the tool is ready to go, you would just hit that and add in the new tool. So let me discard this for a moment and talk high level about this pipeline and what happens. And I'm going to tie that all together at the very end when we look at an actual call to this in the monitor. So the first time an agent or LLM makes a call to this pipeline, we're going to go out this upper branch of the MCP server router. And really what that does is it just gets a list of all the tools, the tool description, tool requirements, things along those lines. That's what it gets the first call. Then once the agent understands what can be called, it will make a second call and it will go use this dynamically configured pipeline execute to call whichever tool is needed. So again, that's really why all you need to modify here and work with is this very simple, very streamlined pipeline, multi-pipeline function generator. All right. So we've built this pipeline and now we want to actually go and turn it into an MCP server. So how do we do that? The first thing we need to do is a new setting here. If we look in properties, is make sure that this is toggled on as an MCP server. Okay, that's part one. Part two is in the new build options, I can click MCP server and now I have a new configuration wizard to help me set this up. And you'll see the pipeline's validated in the background and the MCP server is red, but that's fine for what we're doing. So let's give this a live demo example just so we can walk all the way through this. So we'll call it AgentFest 2026 live demo 3. Just because I'm possibly sure there's more there hiding for us. Now, if we come down a little bit, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to choose our pipeline source. It's already determined that we're going to use the one we're on. So we just need to figure out where this runs. And this goes back to Dominic's diagram around making sure that you understand where your pipelines execute. So yes, we are going to be retrieving enterprise data. And if that is sensitive data that you want to keep behind your firewall, you can deploy one of these Snaplexes behind your firewall and keep the pipeline executing there. Run behavior, triggered and ultra is just what method, if it's always running or if it's just going to start up when called. We're going to go with triggered for now. We're going to leave timeout alone. But now what I really want to focus on is our new policy management. So this goes into the governance piece that Dominic was talking about. And ever so quickly, I want to show you what it's like to be able to look at existing policies and understand what they can do. So for example, we have a true anonymous, or we could select something with an OAuth token. What I also want to show you, though, is how these policies are created, because this massively simplifies how you secure and govern these MCP servers. And so this is our new MCP policy editor, which if you are using or seen anything around our API management, you'll notice it's very similar. So we're keeping that user experience the same for you. And let me show you what it's like. So for example, if I wanted to, just because it's easy to configure for now, we're going to go with anonymous. And you'll see how these policies show up in the appropriate place. So for example, if I want to do client throttling as well, then I could add authorization, transformation, right? There's certain policies that work with MCP. And so that's what you'll see here, and then be able to configure just like what you would with APIM. All right, so let me go back to my previous tab. And let's save this new one just so that we can see what happens next. Right. So here we have it. The new MCP server has been created. We can see it's enabled, where it's running, who owns it. And if we scroll down a little bit, you can see that we are giving you a single URL. That's all you'll have to worry about. We have also added, but we won't demo here today, that there are some automatic checks and balances that occur in this server information. So if you're missing a load balancer, if there's no nodes available, all of that's there as well to help simplify getting ready to host this. And then we can always go back to edit config. One last thing I want to show you on the MCP server specifically side of things is if I hit view in manager, we can now see this in manager. And if I just hit done for a second, and I get rid of this pre-populated search, what I want to show you is that you can now have a MCP server asset tab in your project manager. So that allows you to see any of the MCP servers and quickly configure them again from here. Now that we're back in Designer, we've seen how to set up an MCP server. We've seen what's necessary to configure. We've seen how we would add new tools. And we understand that this is a pattern that's quickly deployed and copied for additional MCP servers. What I want to talk about next are the two specific tools, and then we're actually going to see this run. So our first tool, and if we think about this from a story perspective as well, what I would want to do if I was at sales or CSM agent is list my opportunities, or list opportunities that meet a certain criteria. And that's what this small pipeline does for me. Now, a couple things is we're letting the agent determine the query that will be used. But what you have to do to configure this to work as a tool is in properties. When we're checked as standard, we now have a new option to mark this as a tool. And that's what allows it to show up in the MCP server's multifunction generator. All right, so this is the first step. The second step is to make sure that you have any parameters configured that the LLM or agent is going to need to pass over to us. Right, so in this case, we need the query, and we have a limit with a default value of 10 that can be overridden. Now I'm going to click on the next tab here, and this is where I would define, to make sure that the LLM understands which fields are required, what data types should be sent. This is the tab that we would go to make sure that is all set up. The final piece here in preparing this is on the info tab, is this purpose field. So if I expand this down and pause on it for a moment so you can read it, this is where you're setting up the prompt or the description for the LLM, the agent, to understand more about what this does. So it's got the high level up top, it's got available fields that it can use, and then as you scroll down, it sees it's got kind of the other rules that it has to think about, right, when it's preparing to make this call. And that's really it. So it's really operating inside of these pieces to make sure that you have the information available. You don't necessarily have to worry about cleaning up the output all that much because it's an LLM and it will translate that for the human being into a clean way. And I'll show that to you in a moment. So let's take a look at our last tool just to make sure that this sinks in on the tool concept. So this is a simpler one. This one's only ever going to get in one record and output one record. So we don't have to worry about that second snap. But let's just reiterate what we just went through. So again, we're marking it as a tool. We're defining our parameters. OpenAI is configured. And then this has its own separate description. So I'll pause it here just for a second in case anybody wants to read it. But other than that, we're going to move right on to actually seeing this work outside of SnapLogic and calling this. So these assets that I've just shared with you, they are live. And so let me go ahead and transfer over to Claude, and I'll show you how that looks today. All right, folks, now that we're in Claude, let me go ahead and paste in the prompt that I copied over. So again, from that sales perspective, we're asking what are our largest open opportunities closing in the next 90 days? Then give me the full details of whichever one looks most at risk. So there's really two things going on here. And we're going to take a look. So the first you can see here is just, as we talked about, right? That first call is the agent trying to understand what tools has available. And then the second part you can see is it actually calling our list opportunities. And here you can actually see the data, right? This is hidden from the user, so it's still natural language to the user's perspective, but it's always here to understand what's going on. All right, so here's our sample data, right? And again, what we did was we fetched these records from Salesforce. We didn't say anything in our prompt about, other than identifying the one at risk. We didn't say anything about give us next steps or anything, right? So we're gonna see what kind of help the AI is giving us as we prepare for that human-to-human interaction for any accounts that are at risk. So first thing here is it's identified the most at-risk account is Meridian Health Systems, and this is all mock data, by the way. So we have the traditional Acme, but if anything else aligns with a real company, it's purely on accident from randomly generated data. So as we come through, we have the full list of all of the rest of our opportunities, right? But more importantly is down below. And again, we just asked it to identify the one at risk, but here it's actually giving us that breakdown, right? And so this is where you have the AI and the human working together. And you can kind of come all the way down to understand why it's at risk. So we're getting that analysis of it, suggested next steps, and then even sort of AI analysis on the read of it, right? So this is two tools being used by Claude that were built on and served up by in a secure way through SnapLogic. And if we wanted to have another tool here to send an email, create a report, all of that's possible. You're not limited to two. It's really up to your creativity. Dominic will get into that a little bit more on something we built internally. But yeah, I just want to point out, right, that this is really up to you and how you want to do it. We're here to help you that connective tissue between these systems, which is something we've been helping enterprise customers do in a scalable way for 20-ish years. All right, so let me hop back into SnapLogic now, and we'll take a look there at the monitor. Now that we're in monitor, we can actually see those calls that we just made. So you can see there's two that are coming through just for listing tools. The ones with child pipelines, if I expand these, you can actually see the child pipelines that we had, the tool calls, right, that occurred in order for Claude or any other agent to get that data. As you scroll through, there's additional information available around where it was called, where it executed, basically a full history of this runtime. And I could go into these each and get a lot more information, but we'll save that for another time. That's it for this demo. Thank you so much. Dominic, back to you.
Thanks for that, Roger. What we saw was how we can achieve concrete benefits from AI with SnapLogic's agentic fabric. So Roger showed us how we can connect to every system with 1,000+ snaps with API management and now MCP client and server support. We can also orchestrate communication between agents and also between agents and humans. And we have that governance and trust layer thanks to the AI gateway, trusted agent identity, and all the MCP metrics with full observability. And this is something that we use ourselves at SnapLogic. So we have an agent that we call Jean-Paul. It sits in our corporate Slack, though it's already also been ported to Teams, and it's connected to all of the systems that we use to run SnapLogic the business, delivering real work output and not generic answers that anyone could get. So it's connected to 15 of our internal systems. It has 45 tools, and I'm sure that both of those numbers are already obsolete by now. As I say, we've been using it internally for real-world use cases, and we have a 30% increase in sales productivity thanks to Jean-Paul, which maps to a 37 times return on the investment we put into it. And it talks to all of our internal systems, as I said, so things that are specific to us, the SnapLogic platform itself, but also the tools that we use to run our business, things that you would recognize as Salesforce, ZoomInfo, Zendesk, Jira, etc., etc. It has the capability to read and to write documents, and just generally to help us do our jobs, to understand capabilities that are out there in the market and how we are able to best support our customers. Let's take a look at what Roger just showed us, how that would appear for a user. So this is the interface to Jean-Paul running in our corporate Slack. So you can see this is his home message. He's explaining, Jean-Paul is a fully autonomous business agent powered by SnapLogic, and it has direct access to all of these different systems as we just saw in the architecture diagram. So if I want to work with Jean-Paul, I flip over to the messaging interface and I can say, please give me report with everything we know about our customer, NovaBio. And so now Jean-Paul is going to go off, is going to contact all of those various different tools that are relevant for this query in order to put together a comprehensive customer report about NovaBio. So at this point, Jean-Paul is contacting our Salesforce CRM, our Zendesk ticketing system, etc. You can see the explanation for everything that it's doing. It's querying multiple systems simultaneously, and in a moment we'll get our report back. And he's given me this full account overview for the customer NovaBio. So we can see the account health, they're pleased with us, which is good because they've been with us since December 2014, so they're a pretty long-standing customer of ours. And we can see everything about them. So their whole corporate goals and strategic priorities. That informs, of course, how we talk to them, the sorts of projects that we might try to propose to them or support them with. It's already identified some key integration opportunities that we might suggest to them. The history of the business that we've done with them in the past, any tickets that they've raised with us. So good news, we haven't had any critical issues. We have had some other issues that we've had to deal with. So, we can go into that, and that would be very useful. We can see the number of nodes that they have with us, the size of the infrastructure. So this is talking directly to the SnapLogic backend. So we can see all of that. You can see their platform usage analytics. So they had a bit of a spike around the end of the year, and then they brought that back down. So we happen to know what was going on with those projects. The data processing volume spiked then and has been decreasing a little bit since. Again, there's some specific customer reasons for this, and our raw usage data right at the bottom that's underpinning all of these fancy graphs. Here's another example of the sorts of things that we can do with Jean-Pierre. So this is a response from a request that we got from a customer, or a prospective customer, I should say. I was asking whether we could support them with a Snowflake project that they had. And so the salesperson simply forwarded the email from the customer to Jean-Pierre and asked him over email to put together a response to the customer requirements. And there we have it. So we can see exactly the sorts of response that we could give, the capabilities that we have that we can propose for exactly the integrations that the customer has or the prospective customer has as their requirement. And this is generated just from the original email from the customer with a very basic prompt. Hey, can you help me respond to this customer requirement? And I'm sure that between the demo and talking about Jean-Paul, you probably also have some ideas for how you could apply these capabilities in your business. So we run these events that we call the Agent Creator Bootcamp. And these are some stories of customers who joined these bootcamps. These are multi-day events and what they were able to build just over the course of the bootcamp. So Mind is a UK charity. And like any charity, they have to try to achieve the maximum benefit with the funds that are made available to them. And so they use multiple systems, multiple platforms for their fundraising, and they need to be able to integrate data from all of them, normalize all of the different formats that each of these systems use, and maintain attribution to their campaign so they can understand what is the most effective thing that they can do for their mission. Once again, their mission as a charity, they're not there to be technologists. And so they were able, just over the course of a couple of days' work in this bootcamp, to build out at least the beginnings of that system that can help them with these goals. PlanView, much more similar to SnapLogic, actually. They're a software vendor, and so they were trying to do the same sort of thing that we do, build structured customer health reports. Their problem is they have so many different systems that the reports, when they just pulled everything that they knew about a customer, were overwhelming. And so they put in a multi-stage reasoning approach that could summarize, identify the most important things that the human users at the end of this process needed to do their jobs. And finally, Unite Students, they manage student housing. And so they built a system during the bootcamp, an email system. So you're a student, you're going to university in the fall, and you want to be able to sign up for housing. And so you can have an email exchange with the system. It maintains the context, it understands your preferences and priorities, but it is also privacy first. So some very cool, very concrete use cases. And again, these are built over the course of just a couple of days during the bootcamp. So if that sounds interesting, we would love to see you at one of the boot camps as soon as we can make that happen. The next one up is on the 18th of May, but you can see all of the dates either by scanning the QR code with a device, or there'll be a link in the chat right away for you to be able to follow. But we look forward to seeing you at one of these events in the near future. Until now, we've talked about how you can build new AI-powered experiences in the SnapLogic platform. Now let's talk about how AI can help you build faster in SnapLogic. Successful AI projects rely on seamless access to data that is specific to you and your context. SnapLogic has the capability to orchestrate and govern how AI connects to your data. Now let's talk about how SnapGPT makes all of that happen fast. So those of you who've been using SnapLogic for a while will probably be aware of SnapGPT. Those of you who haven't can probably guess based on the name what it is, but just to be clear, SnapGPT is an assistant that uses natural language to help you build, analyze, and describe the data pipelines that connect AI agents or anything else to your data, your apps, your systems. Here's what it looks like on screen, and don't worry, we'll get into more depth later in the demo. But basically what's happening here is on the right-hand side, we prompted SnapGPT to create a pipeline that connects to Salesforce, reads some data, does something with it. And in the main area, what we see is it has created just that. It's reading data out of Salesforce, and it's filtering it in various ways and writing it back out, and it's explaining what it's done. This is how you can build data pipelines faster so that you can deploy new capabilities more rapidly, be more agile, respond to new opportunities that emerge, and generally achieve the business success that you're going for. What that looks like in practice, here we have a couple of customers talking about how they were able to build and deploy their workflows in under an hour, where previously it was taking them days. So thanks to SnapGPT, they were able to accelerate that process enormously because it lets them quickly build out accurate end-to-end pipelines. So these are very powerful capabilities to have in your toolbox if you're trying to build data pipelines fast to support new initiatives such as AI. And SnapLogic is the right partner for you on this journey because we didn't just wake up last week and say, oh wow, this AI thing is pretty cool. We've been building AI capabilities since 2017. The first AI-powered capability SnapLogic had was called Iris. This was effectively an autocomplete feature. It would suggest the next logical action. So you would drop a snap into your canvas that read some data, and then it would suggest, oh, maybe you want to filter the data, maybe you want to sort it, maybe you want to write it out to some other system, so it would suggest these options to you. That's already pretty powerful. Then the AutoLink is another machine learning powered capability that helps you map data formats between different systems. Again, very helpful. But then SnapGPT, with the renewed interest in generative AI from 2022 onwards, we were very quick off the mark because we had this background. And so early in 2023, we already went live with SnapGPT, and it was able already in that first release to create a pipeline to help you generate expressions and scripts, to generate documentation for your pipelines, a very important capability, to help you build out database queries and even sample data so you could test out your pipelines. And so that first release was already pretty capable, but then we continued to build on it through the subsequent years, adding important capabilities such as the ability to analyze a pipeline, to be aware of parameters, as well as new AI capabilities such as conversational memory and retrieval augmented generation. And then last year we added source citation, so you can be sure that the recommendations are coming from the SnapLogic docs, and you can follow those links and see where it came from. Awareness of what's going on the canvas, what you might have placed there yourself manually. imaged pipeline, so you have a graphical representation of the pipeline you need. Give that to SnapGPT, it'll build it out for you. The Snap Copilot inside of the Snaps, and the new reasoning model. And there's a lot more to come on that front too. And it's not just about capabilities that are built into SnapGPT itself, there's also the way it interacts with other capabilities of the platform, such as the pattern library. The public pattern library is a whole set of ready-to-use templates that you can either use as is or take as a starting point for your own customization. And you can also build out a private pattern library of patterns that are specific to your organization, to your context. And SnapGPT will read from that when it's asked to build a new pipeline so that you can very quickly implement best practices and development standards across your organization by just having them seamlessly built into the tools. In the same way, SnapGPT supports an automated quality checker, so you can validate that your pipeline is doing the right things. Have you remembered to add error handling? Maybe the way you've set up this snap could cause some issues. Right now, you can do that interactively. We're working to make it so that you can build it into your CI/CD pipelines as well as a gate that you have to go through to get into production. And that's all part of moving SnapGPT beyond day one tasks. So when we talk about day one, that's the sorts of things that a new user or an infrequent user of SnapLogic might need to help them get up to speed. A power user needs different capabilities. They will often need to do things like understand the pipeline somebody else built, make sure everything is documented. They need to optimize a pipeline that's already correct in terms of logic, but it needs to have the best performance, or maybe there's some corner cases they need to troubleshoot. And even if you're fully conversant with SnapLogic, you can build yourself in the canvas faster than you can prompt SnapGPT, you'll occasionally run into situations where you need to build a SQL query or a regular expression to talk to some target system, and SnapGPT can help you with that too. But the proof that this transition is happening, that it's not just day one users, but it's power users using this capability, is that actually the most used prompt in 2025 was describe the pipeline. And that's not the sort of thing a day one user will need. And further proof of the evolution of the tool is that SnapGPT now has dedicated modes of thinking for different tasks. So standard thinking is optimized for speed and less complex tasks. You need to document a pipeline, generate a regular expression, do the pipeline quality check or snap configuration. These are all things that you can do quickly in one pass. Extended thinking is advanced reasoning so that you can generate more complex, more comprehensive, more optimized pipelines. And it lets you provide much more detailed prompts so you can get higher quality results. What's coming soon is plan mode, where you can validate your plan for a particularly complex pipeline generation ahead of time before executing it. So SnapGPT will come back to you with a plan, and you can then approve the plan it suggests, or you can modify it further and customize it and adapt it to make sure that you have something that is ready to get to production quality without having to go round and around and around before you can get to that point. Now, those of you who are SnapLogic power users will know and love the data preview capabilities that are built into the pipeline editor that show you what the data looks like at each step of your pipeline. So what we've done now is we have added the preview data insights so that you can get more context on the structure of that data. So you can understand things like local customizations of data formats, but also so you can identify more sensitive data, personally identifiable information, or you can have validation and business rules. Now, this is obviously looking a little bit more in depth at the data, and so it's an opt-in feature to preserve data security in sensitive environments. So let's take a look at how some of these capabilities would operate in practice. Roger, take it away.
Thanks again, Dominic, for the introduction. So let me go ahead and we're going to focus on two things today. We're going to focus on the metadata intelligence or get data insights that Dominic just showed, and we're going to focus on extended thinking. So in the lower right-hand corner, we can see the extended thinking option. So I'm going to go ahead and select that for a pipeline. And I have this blank canvas with a couple notes just to help me. So I've pre-built my prompt. So this is what we're going to run, and I'll leave it there just so everybody can kind of see it. We're going to run this and we're going to talk a little bit about and kind of watch how it comes through. So it's going to go ahead and do its thinking around what it wants to do. But what I like that it starts to do is even before it builds a pipeline, even before it pops that up, it's going to start walking you through its thinking process, right? So it identifies the snaps that it's going to need. Ultimately, it's going to then write the file. And then that's where we're going to go ahead and drop that onto our canvas and show what happens next. At this point, SnapGPT has completed its processing of our pipeline. And I'm going to go ahead and import this on a new tab. And for those who are unfamiliar with SnapGPT, there's a couple things to know about it. One is that it's highlighting all of the fields that it interacts with. So you'll see that here, it gave us a label for a pipeline. And as we import that, if I come in and show you, it has configured everything for us exactly like we asked. Right? So if I go and click on the mapper, it's mapped everything out, including flattening of fields. What I want to do to help show the data insights though, and then we're going to work with this and I'll show you a little bit more about extended thinking, is I'm going to go ahead and drop in my Salesforce developer instance. This is the same instance where that demo data existed for our MCP demo. And now let's go ahead and validate this pipeline so that we can pull in that subset of records. And we're not going to build this all the way through in terms of making Redshift work. We put it there for continuity purposes, but let's go ahead and take a look. So as a builder of a pipeline, you would come in here and you would take a look at this data. And again, it's all mock data in a dev instance. But you know, maybe there's some fields you're not quite sure of, or you want to make sense of the data faster to see what you should be paying attention to. And this is where data insights comes in handy. So I'm going to click get data insights, and SnapGPT is now going to start analyzing this. And we're going to watch it kind of go through. It's going to go through and give us a bit of information. Actually, let me make this a little bit larger here for this part. So a couple things that this going through. One, it's not just telling us what the field is. Because it was actually given preview data, it can actually call out to us and say, hey, there are nulls in this field. And we're going to see later on where it suggests how we might handle that. Okay. Come down a little further, and it's going to jump here at some moment. It'll jump to the bottom when it's all done, but we're going to keep going as well as we can. There we are. So let me scroll back up. Okay, so it's going to talk about compliance fields. It's going to talk about a metadata table. So if you need to get some more information about certain fields, if you want a human readable explanation of what that is. And then as we scroll down, it's going to start talking about each individual field, some ways that we could clean it up. Right, so under amount, it's suggesting here that we want to make sure we're only looking at greater than 0, right? And we didn't ask for this in that prompt, really. This is the extended thinking, helping us understand our ultimate goal, sort of inferring what we're looking for. There's another one I wanted to come down and talk about too. So, for example, close date, it's saying value span from 2020 to 2026. So we'll just kind of skim through the rest of this, but then we're going to start with that close date. All right. Just so everybody can get a sense of what's going on and give you the opportunity to pause if you're watching later. Now let's go ahead and say, update Salesforce to only fetch opportunities from 2026. All right, I'm not going to tell it how to do it, right? But it's going to come through and it's going to do this. And it's going to give us a diff of the pipelines. So we'll let this go through and then we will talk about what's going on. All right, so as it's starting to think, let's go ahead and take a look, right? So it's suggesting a new pipeline, that's fine. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit replace current. That's fine, we'll exit out of the account. But here's what I wanted to draw our attention to, right? So it's giving us a diff. So it says, this is what we had before, right? This is what we have after. And if we come in and we take a look, scroll down towards the bottom, we can see that it did in fact update this. All right. Now let me drop my account back in here real quick just so we can revalidate. Ah, kept it. Perfect. Now let's do one more thing. So I'm going to hop back over to my other pipeline. And I'm going to copy an additional prompt. All right. Now that we're at this stage, I want to run one more prompt with a little bit more complexity here. And I'll go ahead and fire this off. And this is now asking it to work with the metadata analysis and add in a router. Now that SnapGPT has completed this new version, let's go ahead and replace again. And let's talk about what's happening here. All right. So if we look at the response, it's acknowledging, it's thinking, it's listing here, right? All 3 Redshift insert snaps. It's doing its own checks. Now, what it did though, was it actually gave me multiple branches, and it's using business logic from metadata insights to make sure that we're only looking at specific deals, and those deals that don't meet the business criteria or even just the plain old Salesforce hygiene criteria, they're going to be routed to different tables in this case, right? So it makes analytics a little bit easier. When somebody's analyzing this data downstream, they're able to just look at the valid opportunities, those that are sort of valid but failed some business rules, and those that just flat out are bad hygiene because they're missing required fields. So just another example of how SnapGPT's extended thinking can be used to continue to work on and iterate on a pipeline based on what's already in the context window for you. So thanks again, everybody, for your time. Dominic, back to you.
Thanks, Roger. That was great. So I hope this gave you all some ideas about how you can use SnapGPT in your own process with SnapLogic. It's already active in all non-production environments unless your admins have specifically asked to have it turned off in your environment. But if there's any mismatch there, by all means do let us know. If you need some more inspiration for how to use SnapGPT in your own practice, you can scan the code on the screen with your device, and that'll take you to a playlist of videos with various ideas and SnapGPT features that you can apply immediately. But with that, thank you very much from Roger and from me, and now back to you, Dale, for the rest of the session.
That was excellent. Love listening to those two guys. Thanks, Dominic. Thank you, Roger. So, keeping with the analogy, we've now seen some of the nuts and bolts of the agentic drivetrain. But the reality of the enterprise is that we aren't all driving on the same smooth track. Depending on your industry, your data landscape, you're dealing with a different kind of terrain. So what that means is you need to know how your engine performs under different conditions, because frankly, every enterprise is different. So to look at how this transformation is playing out across a broader ecosystem, we're bringing in a group of experts who see the road from every angle and have seen a lot of different terrains. So please welcome our moderator, Molly Matthews from SnapLogic. We have our good friend and customer, Hal from Bison Transport, and 2 of our partners, Shri from AWS and Mukta from Cognizant. These are 4 people that are truly in the driver's seat of this architectural shift. Molly, I'm excited to hear this discussion. Over to you and the team.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. As you know, AI is now generating integration logic, drafting tests, and even executing workflows. That raises a bigger question. Is integration simply getting faster or fundamentally changing? So today we're going to be discussing this and more with our amazing group of panelists from Bison Transport, Cognizant, and AWS. So before we jump in, I would love for our panelists to introduce themselves. Hal, do you mind kicking us off?
Yeah, Hal Halson. I'm working for Bison Transport as a principal enterprise architect. I've been in architecture for over 23 years in different capacities in different industries. I'm very, very looking forward to this discussion.
Wonderful. Mukta?
Thank you. Lovely to be here. I'm Mukta. I look after the government and regulatory business sector in the banking and financial services for Cognizant. I'm a client partner with them. Thank you.
Wonderful. And Shri?
Hey, a very good morning from beautiful San Francisco. It is a pleasure to be here with SnapLogic, with Bison Transport, and of course Cognizant. We're all partners, and my name is Shri Raghavan. I'm responsible for what's called enterprise strategy with our tech partnerships team. So I've been in data and analytics for about 25 years, and my responsibility is to work with all these partners in terms of integrating their solutions into the AWS technology stack.
Fantastic. And I'm Molly Matthews. I'm a part of the team here at SnapLogic. I've been a part of technology teams for the last several decades, and I'm so excited to dive into our topic today. So let's start with a lightning round. In one sentence, and Shri, we'll start with you. What has changed the most in integration over the last 18 months?
From my standpoint, what I'm seeing with our customers is a fundamental change. Of course, code has gotten faster, but the true transformation to me lies in us moving from rigid, manually coded, and maintained connections to adaptive AI orchestrated networks that can handle complex, unstructured, and as you can easily imagine, rapidly changing data environments. This is what I see as a fundamental change.
And how about from your perspective? What have you seen changing?
There's a lot been changing in the last 18 months, and it's hard to answer this question without referring to AI. AI has been very integral in our integration journey, and really, what I'm seeing the two biggest changes are how we connect to our data versus point-to-point connections from applications, and/or the emphasis on how this is driving out a further focus on business architecture to look at business processes.
Fantastic. I know, Mukta, obviously you have the opportunity to work with many different partners in your role and the teams that you lead. I'm sure you're seeing change nonstop. So I would love to hear from your perspective.
So see, for us as Cognizant, we sit literally between the world of Shri and the world of Hal. I think we sit alongside you somewhere, SnapLogic, Molly. So what we have seen is AI has actually changed everything, for better or for worse. Clients want everything. They want agility, they want speed, they want scale, they want quality, along with strategy, along with the fact that it has to be a future-proof way of working with the right quality and compliance. So for us, the world's literally rattled. So our world is rattled completely.
And I think, AI is the topic of our time, right? And it's changing so frequently. It's funny even saying 18 months out loud, it feels like the wrong time frame to talk about. And Shri, I'd love to hear from the AWS perspective, you know, often leading on this topic and talking about co-pilots and all of the different ways that AWS is leaning in to support so many of us around this. How do you feel like integration development and just this concept of AI co-pilots is helping or hurting, maybe from your perspective, to just help the integration landscape?
Yeah, let me first agree with Mukta's point. Our worlds are rattled, right? In a lot of good ways, though, I will say, and that's the spirit in which I think Mukta also made that point. But I also think there's quite a bit of uncertainty, right? Simply because there's a Cambrian explosion of tools today. Copilot is just one of the tools, right? And albeit a very important tool. To me, copilots, AI copilots, are revolutionizing integration development by transforming, I think somewhere I read, manual code intensive tasks into what I call conversational automated processes. And I think some statistic that I heard a while back saying 88% of developers reporting improved productivity. Now, statistics are neither here nor there, but the consistent number that I've heard is over 75%. Now, AI copilots excel at speeding up repetitive tasks enormously. But to your point, there is also a current limitation by their inability to fully handle highly complex or undocumented legacy systems without strict human oversight. So, from that standpoint, there's a long way to go as far as AI copilots are concerned. And we've done some enormous work at AWS. For instance, we've got this thing called AWS Kiro. It's an agentic AI powered integrated development environment. And what it does is it transitions developers from prototyping to actually production using spec-driven development. So I don't want to go too much into technical details, but I will for a quick second. It's based on something called VS Code Fork. But the idea is that you are now able to use natural language prompts with what's called Amazon Bedrock, which is our AI service, into structured technical specification requirements like designs and to generate, test, and deploy code. So AI copilots have come a long way. They've matured significantly and continuing to mature, but for repetitive tasks, they're fantastic. But for complex environments, we're still working towards that quote unquote holy grail.
what we find on like the floor level here on our side is that it's a lot about, I mean, technology is great, it's available. We use that and we have it as an added function to enhance your workday, if you will. The problem we are seeing right now is that it's lacking in education, meaning that how do you train people to use these tools, and how can you use them effectively? So there's a certain amount of resilience on jumping into that space. So we'll have to continue to educate the differences between Copilot versus a business process that's AI enabled, that you may or may not see in the background. So I think education is very, very key here.
I love that you brought that up, Hal. I was actually just reading an article this morning about this very topic, about how so much focus has gone into the systems, the integrations, the actual workflows, but the change management, right? And really bringing people along on the journey, kind of like winning the hearts and minds of the people, right? Who are going to have to be working inside of these systems and changing is really kind of the next frontier of AI, so to speak. And so I think that's such a fantastic point. And especially, and I love, the perspective that you bring from Bison Transport, is AI is now disrupting legacy systems or things we don't think about necessarily as disruptable. But transportation, healthcare, like all of these, different businesses that are so primed to be lightly modernized, but are still serving the same human capital, right? The same people. So I love that perspective. And Mukta, I would just love to hear, you guys so often are standing in that gap, right? Between the business outcomes that you're hired to accomplish, but you are having to really do those implementations and ensure, that these things are done in a way that is bringing people along on the journey. So maybe just talk a little bit about that from the Cognizant perspective.
See, overall from Cognizance and the area that I look after, Molly, and I'm sure Shri and Hal would agree, financial services are very cautious when it comes to adopting and adapting to the AI world. And working with regulators and the government clients, of course, it becomes even more difficult. But what we've seen as service integrators, our biggest impact has largely been in the build area, which, as Shri rightly said, repeatable task. So with testing and documentation, they are following closely behind, because these are the parts of the life cycle where we have been deployed for to work for the client. And these are the areas where we think that AI can most easily accelerate the engineering tasks. And this is where we see as service integrators, where we can actually get maximum measurable gains and very clear measurable gains. Code generation, maybe refactoring of it, code explanation, maybe migration for that matter, boilerplate, and also developer assistance. But very important to note, as Sri had rightly said earlier as well, these are the repeatable ones. They're not bringing in thought leadership here along with the AI or the different ways of working here. And that is where Cognizant's own metrics that we publish. So our CEO has stated that about 30% of our code across the client base is done by AI with the help of AI. And we work very closely with hyperscalers as AWS, Google, and Microsoft. EY also ran apparently, I was reading about some survey, cross-industry survey from EY, that also pointed first to software development as the largest impact in the areas. But we now looking at the wave that's coming up, I believe the next wave from Cognizant or any service integrator would be the test generation, quality engineering acceleration, and documentation support. So I was reading IBM reports. They said that their internal time savings have been about 59% on code documentation, about roughly the same on code explanation, about close to a 40 on both code generation and test case generation. But yes, there are. I mean, to be honest, there is definitely adoption, slow adoption as well, which is design and production scale rollouts. We all know that AI sometimes coming to production can often fail. So of course, we've seen a bit of a slower adoption there, because we believe enterprise value is constrained actually, and it's driven more by trust, governance, and the ability to operationalize AI very safely. So this is how we have started looking at this area now.
There was a word that popped out for me in that I'd love us to dig into, and how I would love everyone to to kind of share with me the perspective that you bring to this. And the word was governance, because I think, again, this is another hot topic when it comes both to integration. You're plumbing data in from a bunch of different places. You're giving access to different teams, often in our world, around the world, right? How do you view, Hal, at Bison, the access that you're giving, the governance that you're wrapping around, having system access, all over the place, but really when it comes to this concept of AI, what is Bison's view around governance?
Governance is, you're right, absolutely important. And this is something that we focused on quite heavily. So just to put some context here, we are modernizing now our 20-year plus legacy systems that are comprised of about 200 plus applications. So we decided to implement a brand new integration platform that is event driven. This, in effect, actually forced us to, not to say that we didn't have governance before on the old systems, but it actually forced us to rethink what governance looks like. And what we found is that implementing those technologies and the vendors we have right now to serve that platform, they often bring the best practices to us. We can then adjust them to the way of how we work, and that's been very, very, very successful. And you're right, when we talk about access to information systems all over the place, sometimes that's very ungoverned. And in our case, what we did was to create master data stores and operational data stores to consolidate that information, to take back control of the access to that data. So nobody has direct access to the master data anymore, but the integration layer and subsequently AI. One other thing I want to mention is that the development time that we've now have on through our new processes, new governance, and new integration layer is a lot less than it used to be. And we are using effectively AI-enabled tools to reduce that engagement as well. So all around good story, and we've reaped the benefits from that with reusability and also a low-code, no-code environment, which has really, really helped us in launching new projects that used to take 2 years before, now take maybe months. So it's a very eye-opening experience.
That's amazing. And Shri, what about from the AWS perspective? When you think of governance, obviously, this is very core to how AWS approaches many, many things. But I would love to hear this perspective specifically when you think about agents and their ability to act, autonomously. How do you view that?
Hey, before I dive into the question, two things I want to say. One is, when I work with a spectacular panel like this, there are so many important points that are being mentioned. Two in particular. One is about enablement. I'll mention. The other thing is about the larger issue of governance from the standpoint of things like foreign entities. We work a lot with European countries. We work a lot with Asia Pacific. So things like GDPR is extremely important, as well as HIPAA, things that Mukta mentioned as well. But we don't have time to go into. But specifically to your, and by the way, so happy that Mukta mentioned AWS first before the others. Absolutely very important. I think I made.
You didn't pay her, did you?
No, of course I heard. Of course, I'm so happy I made my money for today. But anyway, in terms of governance, for us, we believe that governance must evolve from reactive, human-in-the-loop oversight, which is historically what it has been at, to more proactive, agent-centric orchestration. What I mean by that is you are now seeing a plethora of agents. When I say plethora, I think it's a tremendous understatement to the actual numbers of agents we're seeing. I was talking to a large financial services company out of Switzerland yesterday, and one of the things that we're saying was they are actually putting into production hundreds of agents this year, and significantly going to expand for a variety of tasks from the sublime to the ridiculous. Now, to manage all of these autonomous agents that operate at high speeds across disparate systems is not easy. And that's where traditional governance, as important as it is, falls short a little bit. It tracks users, but agentic governance must actually treat autonomous entities as what's being called as digital labor. assigning them unique identities,
Mm.
clear boundaries, zones of intent, and continuous runtime monitoring. So from that standpoint, there is going to be a bit of a transition, and the transition is actually going to be quite cataclysmic in nature, which is a good thing. Although the way I use a word, has all kinds of unseemly implications. But that's not the point. The point is now it has to be a lot more proactive. It has to be a lot more agentic centric, and there's got to be more serious human in the loop oversight, I believe, and we believe here at AWS, for the vast number of agents that are going to be in production.
So I think if I have to draw an analogy here, Molly, Hal, and Sri, it would be this governance would be what traffic rules are for driving. So it's not the car, it's the system that ensures that you're driving safely and the right manner. So it can be an autonomous car, it can be a sports car, it can be a normal car, it can be your Marutis in India or the Kias here, or you can have Mercedes or whatever that is. I think it's the traffic signals, the rules, everything that brings this, I would say, method to the madness of AI. I think I can draw that parallel very easily there.
I'd just like to add to this discussion a little bit around agentic governance. So agent governance is one thing where you're using maybe one agent here and there. Agentic, meaning that you have multiple agents working on something, it requires very, very, very careful design and orchestration and oversight. So, I mean, my point, at least for our enterprise, is that we will not be using just totally autonomous agents from day one. We will not. There will always be human in the loop, and we will continue to involve that. But there is this misconception on just, install the AI and we'll all be better off for it. But that's not the way it goes. So, it's fundamental for us to install and complete what I'd consider to be the horizontal layer that kind of drives everything else. And that's the governance, that's the security. Just to mention that, a lot of companies' vulnerabilities are through APIs. And agentic use of API is therefore not just turn on, but it has to follow the whole process. Right? Just an example. So we see this as an ongoing thing. However, it's a lot faster than a lot of modern technologies that we've seen in the past, such as the internet, etc. So how do we mix match between just click install, and away you go, and generally and maybe take a more of a cautious approach to this. So build the foundation first, and then we'll look at what we can enable AI-wise in our industry. There's a lot of opportunities for that, by the way. But cautiously. Just wanted to point that out. But governance absolutely first.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just saying about there are a few questions I always carry with me as a checklist when we're talking about AI to our clients, whether we are taking from our hyperscalers or building it once internally. And I think a lot of it draws from both I've heard from Hal and Mrs. Sri. One is who's allowed to use that AI. You cannot just democratize it and say, free to use for whatever you want. Next is what data are you actually trying to feed into the AI, the agent or the process? Then, of course, how do you prevent leakage of sensitive information? You have classified data, the sensitive information. How do you put that guardrail or the traffic system there? And then the human in the loop, of course, checks for biasness and for accuracy and quality and this, that, and the other. But the most important question that sounds very transactional sometimes, very tactical sometimes, is who is responsible when something goes wrong? Very, very important.
Yeah.
Well, that definitely has an impact, Muktaj. So, I mean, we're a federally regulated industry, so we do have guidelines around what we can and cannot do with our data, or if it has to stay within our borders, etc. So, I mean, we're very careful with that. But absolutely turns the point on and a highlight on the fact that how secure is that data, and when you turn that over to an automatic process, although being half automatic. What's the observability on that, and what's the risk to the organization when we do something like that? I mean, we cannot just implement technology for the sake of speed. We have to be very pragmatic about it, and sometimes regulations are absolutely something we need to put first because it has a deep impact if it goes wrong.
Sure. I actually think it's easier at times when you are in a regulated industry, right? It's where you have some of those boundaries that you can build around into. I think it gets really interesting. I mean, that's a kind word, interesting, more difficult, right? When you aren't in necessarily an industry where there are tight regulations. So you think non-finance, non-healthcare, non-transportation, that is where you are beginning to have to develop those rules and regulations for your own industry or company. Sri,
I'll,
sorry, you're going to say something.
no. You make all of you make an excellent point in this regard, right? But I'll tell you one of the things that sometimes we've noticed is a bit of an overreach in the sense that yes, these are highly regulated industries, and yes, there's a lot of risk if things were to go wrong. So the natural reflexive reaction sometimes is to shut off all access and essentially say, "Hey, I'm not going to take any risks because it's my job, and therefore I'm really not in a position to be able to actually open even a tiny bit of the floodgate." Now that's where here at AWS, what we do is, just like of course, with Bison Transport and Cognizant as well, we move from no access as a reflexive option to saying, hey, let's provide least privileges one step at a time, to essentially then saying, take that least privilege to a just-in-time intervention. So essentially what it means is that for certain kinds of high-risk industries or high-risk tasks where, data breaches are extremely sensitive, we say, let's provide the access and let's provide the certain kinds of privileges, but also make sure human in the loop is there, and that's a fancy way of saying just in time, just so that if things were to go awry, there is someone there who's actually going to be able to take action to make sure that first of all, you are doing the right thing by the business by providing access, but at the same time taking the right kinds of precautions to ensure that things don't go bad.
I think this leads me into a topic that I was hoping we would get to cover today, which is talent. And I know that sounds a little separated from some of the things that we've talked about: integration, governance, AI, co-pilots. But in reality, this is the question I hear all of the time. Obviously, I come from a leadership, background, CEO, president, etc. Everybody wants to know, how is this topic disrupting or changing the game when it comes to hiring and talent? So, Hal, I'd love to start with you. How does the integration space, how AI is disrupting the workplace, how does it change or augment how you prioritize capability in hiring today?
For our integration specifically and on our data side, we find, at least in Canada, that those talents are very scarce. And to find somebody in that space is not easy. So training internal people on how to use the newer technologies that is not necessarily hands-on keyboards, but more click and drag, has become the focus here. So, and that, in that you can actually retrain a developer on to be an integration specialist. So that has definitely changed that. And AI has a huge role in that, by the way. So, although I want to point out that, there is a fear out there from a talent pool perspective, that, oh, well, we're going to be replaced by an AI after a couple of months here. That's just not true. There's still a lot of need for workers that are skilled in various levels. But, the more need we have is more around people who know how to use AI. And that's what we're very, very curious about, and how we can attract talent pool like that, because it is going to be impacting all levels of our operations, from maintenance to warehousing to anything else. So that's the big piece we're looking at.
Great. Mukta, same question for you.
I think I'll pick on a few points that Hal and Sri made earlier. And then we discussed that AI literally is taking over the build work, the test work, all the repeatable tasks, perhaps. So what we, as a service integrator and service provider, we start looking at is the role for us. The role now becomes less about tool operation and more about human judgment. So that we always call human in the loop in any area. So the capabilities that we prioritize today are primarily the business understanding. So you have to have domain knowledge, in depth architectural thinking. So we look for engineers with a very with proficient in certain technologies, data and process understanding, very important, how they collaborate with each other in terms of system integration, as we say. See, we're not saying that we do not value technical strength, we do. But what really has stood out for us is the ability to align all of the tech stack that we have with our clients with the business outcomes to make them more reliable, secure, scalable for the AI. But internally, as Hal said, I would repeat what he said. We are also building our talent internally. So we have our coding events and we work alongside our clients. We have licenses. We work very closely, as I said earlier, with all the hyperscalers. So we have access to their sandboxes. We have access to our client sandboxes and we continue to develop. So it's like literally learning on the job. So we continue to upskill our people on the use of AI, ethical use of AI, and then continue to build on top of what our service providers, our tool providers have to offer. So this is how we're looking at hiring. But primarily, to answer your question in one simple short sentences, we're focusing more on the domain expertise, the thought leadership, than just the technical capability now. There's a huge shift.
Yeah. Shri, what about you? What about from the AWS perspective? Has anything shifted in how you're hiring?
Tremendously. I think, first of all, it's very important to underscore the point that AI is not here to replace people. It seems very cliched in a lot of ways, but it's absolutely important for us to disabuse people of the notion that you are going to lose your job to AI. It's unthinkable for a number of reasons. First of all, it's actually pretty insulting to say that all the years of business acumen that you've developed can suddenly be replaced with this code generation tool, for lack of a better word. It's impossible. It cannot be done, right? So to Mukta's point, what we're looking for is, I was talking to one of the VPs of engineering here last week, and one thing she said was, we're looking for strategists, an architect and a strategist put together.
Right. Yeah.
What they do is AI certainly acts as a builder, the integration professional, it generates code for you and all that. But you need someone who ensures that automated disparate AI outputs and APIs function together to create this cohesive, secure, and most importantly, business aligned workflows. And this is where both the points that Hal and Mukta made in terms of being very cognizant, pardon the pun, by the way, of the business and understanding the business processes, understanding the use cases. Ultimately, it's never about that particular tool because, as you know, again, tools change. I've used so many tools 6 months ago that I hardly even touch today, simply because, things have changed. But the business logic hasn't changed. The use cases hasn't changed. Our ability to be able to bring together different tools and strategically think about how we're going to address these use cases in the long term, that is fundamental. And that's exactly what it is we're hiring for. We don't test for code because, you can even I can code, which is appallingly bad, but nonetheless, those are some of those things that we're looking for, and our perspective has changed from that standpoint.
Yeah, I love it. I've noticed, and I think this is just a shift that's been actually coming for quite some time, is I have such value, tremendous value. And it's not just in our engineering teams, but it's really across all business system teams for strategic thinking, systems thinking, people who are collaborative, who are curious, right? And I think, we are now seeing that leak into our engineering teams, which I personally think is an exciting time to be in engineering, where you no longer are just put against a set of problems and a keyboard. Like you are now, having the freedom and being challenged to think across multiple problem sets, and you are being an advisor into business outcomes in a different way than I think you were 5 and 10 years ago, which I think, if that's inspiring to you, I think it's a great time to be in engineering. All right. So just before we close, I have one kind of final lightning round. This has been so fun, such a wonderful conversation and great deep insights from each of you. So this is difficult because I feel like AI has transformed daily, like weekly for sure, but daily, kind of how we all think about what it is that we do in integration. But if I can ask, when you think 3 years ahead, if you were to just put into one sentence, if you can, and you think 3 years ahead, what will define a world-class integration team in 3 years? So Shri, I'm going to start with you.
I was hoping I'd go last, but nonetheless, 3 years, 2029. Of course, the caveat is that things have changed so much in the last 3 weeks. So 3 years is a bit of a long time to predict. But if I turn out to be right, then I'm buying all kinds of lottery tickets. For us in 3 years, we believe a world-class AI integration team will be defined not merely by technical expertise, as we've talked about, but by its ability to orchestrate what I call human agent learning at scale. They will be moving beyond experimenting with chatbots to deploying autonomous domain-specific AI agents as digital co-workers, and that's a very important point. It's not about these agents replacing you, but they'll be digital co-workers with the focus of about, I would imagine, about 80 to 90% of process redesign and about 20% technology implementation. That's what I see in the looking glass 3 years from now.
Great. Hal, what about you?
I'm inspired what you said, Sri. There, it's definitely something that I can see. So I echo that. In 3 years, it's going to be hard to kind of imagine what that would look like. But maybe I'll venture on here and say, here's what I see. So when we've all been doing in the last little while is to disconnect business from IT. That's been a long-standing problem. So to me, it's about building capabilities for the business to do what they do best. So we'll provide through these technologies, advancements, agents, etc., the ability for the business to quickly turn around an idea into an actionable item. And basically, I'm not saying just click a button and it's there, but providing the capabilities to do so very fast. In order to do that, you need to understand the whole business process and how that works. And IT needs to kind of toe the line on trying to get up with the business process and not focus on the technology. So, and that's what I see. I see a tremendous opportunity through AI to make that happen. And maybe I'm biased here, but I see everybody as an architect. Everybody contributes to architecture. So I think that's going to be something I would like to see in 3 years.
Amazing. All right, Magda, you're going to bring us home.
So I was thinking when I heard Hal and Sri, I was like, okay, they've stolen the answer from me. So let me see what I can do differently. Let me try and use the world as my canvas and then tell you maybe I'll try to be a bit more radical. So picking on what Sri and Hal said, yes, maybe 3 years from now, I can see Cognizant proposing their teams as maybe 60% digital workforce and 40 in human form. Maybe I may still have the job till then. But then the second part of what I was thinking as they were talking is that maybe there will also be a situation, a state where my client's portfolio will also be not a product portfolio, maybe an AI portfolio, AI products. Maybe they're managing AI products. So maybe that world will also change 3 years from now. Who knows? Anthropic has already disrupted a lot of thinking, and they've gotten a lot of people worried. So maybe who knows where will we be 3 years? But I think this is how the world looks like to me, in my weird imagination.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation. I think the one thing we know to be true is change is constant, and we are all just leaning in and trying to be the best change agents we can possibly be. So thank you guys all for joining us. AI, we have heard from all three of these wonderful experts, isn't removing the role, it is simply reshaping it. And how organizations respond to that shift will determine how effectively intelligence scales across the enterprise. Thank you so much. We hope that you enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you,
It was
Molly.
awesome.
Thanks, Hal
Thank
and
you,
Sri.
Molly. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mukta. Thank you, Hal.
Thanks.
Okay, that was excellent. Thank you to Molly and all the panelists for that fantastic discussion. I think what's clear is while the engine of AI is the headline, it is those people, the mechanics of integration, what actually help us win the race. It's the people, it's your teams that are critical in this transition. So now I realize I've spent a while building this virtual race car, high performance engine analogy. I'm pretty much out of automotive metaphors. But let me reiterate one theme that really came through in that discussion. It's how the role of the integration teams is evolving from simply connecting systems to orchestrating intelligent workflows that bring together AI, data, applications, and your people. That's the message. That's it. Bring the people together. So to help us zoom out and look at the road ahead, I'm excited to welcome back our CTO, Jeremiah Stone. Jeremiah, I'll let you handle the vision of where we're actually driving this thing. So over to you.
What you saw today was not a demo. It was a preview of the future, of how enterprises will operate. Over the course of this event, we saw what it actually takes to move AI from experimentation to enterprise execution. We saw a real company running AI-powered workflows in production for critical processes. We saw the architecture required to connect agents to enterprise systems. We saw tools that make it possible to rapidly build high-quality governed workflows. And we heard from partners who are seeing this transformation happen across the integration landscape. Real companies, real architecture, real workflows, real impact. Taken together, these examples point to something much bigger. AI is no longer just an experimental, exciting capability. It is becoming operational infrastructure. Not merely an individual productivity tool, that was the Copilot era. Individual productivity is helpful, but it is not transformative. Not an assistant. Isolated agents can execute tasks, but alone they cannot run your business infrastructure. AI embedded in enterprise workflows. Digital labor. That's the destination, and that's where the leading enterprises you heard from today are already. Across industries, organizations are experimenting with AI and moving it into production. AI is ready. Enterprise execution, however, is not yet. AI cannot run enterprise workflows on its own. To do that, agents need access to enterprise systems. They need access to enterprise data. They need workflow coordination across applications. And they need governance, control, and trust. That means the missing layer in enterprise AI is not intelligence. It is execution. And execution requires orchestration. When agents are connected to enterprise systems and orchestrated across workflows, something powerful begins to happen. The high volume and data-intensive processes we talked about at the beginning of this event, they become automated. Decision cycles compress, and organizations can reallocate capital and staff to take on higher value work and compete at a higher level to win. This is what we mean when we talk about the agentic enterprise. Not just individual agents performing tasks, AI-powered workflows operating across the business, delivering real outcomes. The architectural layer that enables this shift is integration. Integration becomes the execution foundation for enterprise AI. SnapLogic is the agentic integration platform that enables AI-powered workflows to run securely across enterprise applications, data, and systems. For IT leaders and integration teams, for people who are passionate at this, it's an amazing time. You sit at the center of this transformation. You are the teams responsible for connecting systems, for orchestrating workflows, for governing data and automation. Increasingly, you are the teams enabling AI to operate with impact safely inside the enterprise. The question organizations are now asking are clear. Which business processes should we redesign for AI? How do we safely connect agents to enterprise systems? How do we govern and trust AI execution at scale? Those are exactly the kind of questions you're already skilled at and the challenges that SnapLogic platform was designed to solve. Every company will become an agentic company. The companies that win won't be the ones with the best models. They'll be the ones that effectively harness them first. The question is which organizations will operationalize AI first? Thank you for joining us at AgentFest. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we have and look forward to working together with you. All right, back to you, Dale.
Okay, that's it. Thank you again for joining us for this year's AgentFest. We've spent the last few hours now looking at what it takes to get your AI strategy racing. I promise, no more analogies. But as we wrap up, the most important part of the agentic enterprise isn't the engine or the architecture. It's you. You're the driver. The technology is ready. The drivetrain is built. The only question left is how fast do you want to go? We're moving past the era of experimentation and into the era of execution and results. The organizations that win this race won't be the ones with the flashiest demos. They'll be the ones who successfully hitched their AI agents to real-world data and systems that power their business and, of course, get the right outcomes. That's why SnapLogic is here. So, to keep the momentum going, you can head over to snaplogic.com, explore the additional resources there to help you along your journey, whatever stage you're in. And if you need more hands-on support, the team is always here. Reach out through our website or reach out to your account manager. We're ready to sit down with you and map out exactly how to take the next step. So, on behalf of the entire team at SnapLogic, not just the people you heard from today, thank you for being part of this transformational shift. Engine is roaring, track is clear, and we can't wait to see what we can build and where we can go together. Let's get to work.